Well, good morning. It is now 9:30, and I'll go ahead and call the Monday, February 2nd, 2026 neighborhood meeting to order. And we'll start with introductions to my left with Mr. Delaney.
Good morning and happy Groundhog Day. Bill Delaney with the administration.
Brandon Russell, Council Research.
Philip Peterson, Councilor's Office.
Good morning, Michael Boylan, District 6.
Ken Amaro, City Council District 1.
Mike Gay, District 2.
Good morning, Chris Miller, at large, Group 5.
Good morning, Ron Salem, Group 2 at large.
Good morning, Tyrona Clark Murray, District 9.
And good morning, Matt Carlucci, at large, Group 4, just visiting.
All right. We'll go ahead and open up our public comment. Do we got any speaker cards? We do. So we'll allow 3 minutes to speak on a specific item on the agenda. You would state your name and address or say it's on file for the record, and you'll be allotted 3 minutes. The first speaker's Latavia Harris.
Good morning. My name is Latavia Harris. My address is on the record. This morning, I'm coming from the Together Eastside Coalition Incorporated, showing my support for the opioid model. We have been going through the CBA negotiations for a long time. In the beginning of these phases, I had a chance to meet with several council members that we explained to them why the opioid model was so important, and they did not vote towards the opioid model. Councilman Salem was the only one at that time. Further along into this, we always had to complain about the oversight, the money staying within the city, and the accountability. Somewhere in this process, I see that the Inspector General office stepped in with pretty much the same concerns that could have been nipped in the bud in the beginning had we as a community been listened to. So I'm in favor of just going to the opioid model. It won't take much of a delay. Some of the ordinance is pretty much written. They'll just have to put it in that model. We've had a chance to meet with Madeline and discuss this model. Even though the other coalition's disposition was money being within the city is scarce, it's red tape, it's the whole red line. That's definitely not a fact with the amount of money that the city puts out in grants a year. So these are taxpayer dollars that need to be safeguarded. And as I did state after meeting with some of the council people, we have always had these concerns. These are not new concerns. Our coalition has no position in wanting to disperse any of the money we wanted in the city because, again, taxpayers deserve to know where their money is going. And we need to be in front of this situation versus behind this situation. There were no safeguards and protections, as we stated to those very council members that we had meetings with, and that was still overlooked because of the trusted partnerships that happened. But I am in favor of the opioid model because this is a one and done for the Eastside community. We have been under-resourced. We deserve this money to go correctly. Yes, we will be probably paying administrative fees, but they will still be maybe either even equal or less than what we're going to pay one executive director. 10% of fluctuating amounts, which could go from $400,000 to $700,000. The average CEO of Fortune 500 companies don't make that type of money. And there was no way to ensure the other capital money that you guys have given and have not had site control. The opioid model will have site control. Someone will come out to make sure from beginning to end that these processes are happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Dennis Sanchez.
My name is Dennis Sanchez, and my address is on file. And I'm also here today in support, with the Together Eastside Coalition Incorporated. And my greatest concern is that why is oversight and shadowing of close to $150 million even being discussed. Like, history speaks for itself. There's been multiple occasions, not from what I'm saying, but even from what Inspector General has been saying. The history is there where companies like this nonprofit that's being formed without even the 3 years of history has already had the history of, for some reason, money disappearing in underfunded neighborhoods. So why are we even having this discussion? Why aren't we just going straight opioid and making sure that the city provides the oversight and the proper funding needed to make sure that this money gets spent where it needs to be spent? And there needs to be some more control over the propaganda saying that city is bad. The greatest thing that the neighborhoods and the community needs to understand is it's not the city is bad. It's when you let the city just go rogue. The city is public. So if the community gets involved, there's nowhere that the city can go. That's where the community needs to understand that it's not the city that's the problem. But when you have private nonprofits formed with total control and 22 pages of bylaws practically giving them full power, that is going to be a future problem. And that is the problem that the OIG has expressed in the last meeting. And that is something that all city council members here, and even those not here, should be taking into consideration, because your names are on the line. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we'll have Don Curling.
Good morning. My name is Dawn Curling. Record address is on file. I am a fourth-generation Eastsider. Both sides of my family, grandparents, grew up, born and raised on the East Side. I also have a business on A. Philip Randolph Boulevard, and I'm also the CEO of the Melanin Collaborative Group, where we host multiple events on the East Side, in the East Side community that brings thousands of people to that neighborhood. And I am in support of the opioid model. I am supporting Together Eastside Incorporated. And one of the reasons that is important and why this pattern of not having this 501c is because, number one, it's a brand new entity that is going to be in control of over $40 million. And it also is weeks old with zero history, no infrastructure, must be built with the $40 million that is at risk here. It's insufficient accountability, and it's insulted governance, independent after confirmation, startup risk, hiring systems, and learning curve delays. So when we talk about slowing it down, that is exactly what it's going to do if we start up with a new nonprofit. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Next, Mr. John J. Nooney. To the bill.
Hello, I am John Philanthropic, Jelly Roll, Good Boy, Resiliency Nooney, 8356 Bascom Road, Jacksonville, Florida, 32216. I'm in City Council District 4, CPAC 3, School Board District 3, 2017-160. Public participation is gone in the Jacksonville City Council Legislative Committee process. Governor DeSantis, Joe Johnson, Brooks Dame, Corey Armstrong, Dean Black, Aaron Bean, Roger Henderson, Lisa Rynham, and Jimmy Orth. Pardon Nooney, 2024-0107. I'll be touching on agenda items 1, 2024-0966. Number 2, 2025-0361. 3, 2025-0900. For it's the general fund for all of us to pay. Number 4, 2026-0004. FWC. Fishing with coin, fishing with cash. We'll be casting back to this one. Everyone will be a co-sponsor on this one. Wait until the chair of finance gets this. FWC, Fun with Carlucci. The number one comment, all expenditures, regardless of dollar amount, does not require city council approval. This is a trust account. Number 6, 2026-0031. 7, 2026-0032, a true fine. Number 8, 2026-0034, FWC, Fishing with the Community. 14, 2026-0042. Now, this is the one-year Strategic Priority Council Plan. That includes $10 million. FWC, Fishing with Contingency Sense, is awesome. This is from the Finance Committee, the entire Finance Committee. FWC, Fun with Carlucci, will be co-sponsors with Amero on 2026-0004. Councilman Arias and jet skis on Pottsburg Creek. 0004-007, Pottsburg Creek, you're in FWC heaven. Agenda item 16, 2026-0063. This is DIA. Downtown includes alcohol. FWC, Fishing with Colin. FWC, Fishing with Cocktails. Number 18, 2026-0066, the St. Johns River Water Management District Public Park on Pottsburg Creek. And finally, number 19, 2026-0074, you say you want a resolution. What was the Jacksonville Waterway Commission vote? Please reflect it in the legislation. And I just want to say we are marketing to the world. We will be donating, and we will be telling the world, visit Jacksonville.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nooney. Next, we got Robinson Telsa.
Grand Rising. My name is Telsa Robinson. My address is 1318 Van Buren. I've been coming up here for about a year. Now that I have some help, and I'm finally getting a chance for the East Side to be able to understand where we're coming from when we say we've been neglected for over 60 years. I support the open model to its full effect. I have spoke with several of you all in the past year, and really hasn't got anywhere. So as I see, as the IGA has stepped in, I really appreciate the time that the IG has took to read over the model when it comes to the East Side and where the money should be funded. All I'm asking you guys is, as I've been asking you guys, is to follow the money and to make sure that the East Side, that gap, that's bridge that gap between the East Side so that we could come back together as one and stand as one, as a unit. That's all I'm asking you guys. Y'all have a great morning.
All right, thank you. Next, we got Robin Sinazel. Okay, she doesn't wish to speak, and she supports the opioid model. Next, we've got Leslie Jean Bart. Come on down and give your name and address, or say it's on file for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Good morning, Leslie Scott Jambar, address on file. As some of you know, there are, whether we like it or not, two groups that are involved in the CBA, and I represent one of the groups that is advocating for the money to stay within the city, the opioid model. And there was a handout that was given basically trying to delegitimize my clients as being able to speak on this issue. First of all, I'm a fifth-generation Jacksonville native. I'm a descendant of the Crowd, Singleton, and Littlejohn family. My family started off on Florida Avenue in the late 1800s until the early 2000s. I've got deep roots on the East Side. We have people who live on the East Side, have businesses on the East Side, were displaced from the East Side, and who care about the East Side. How the money got here is a great thing for the group that did it, and we applaud them, but that does not mean that they own this money. This is taxpayer dollars. This is everybody has a say in how these dollars are spent. And there's another sort of story going around that my clients want the money. How do they want the money if they want the money to stay within the city? And, you know, when it comes to the mentality of the monopolizing of the money, it's our money, gatekeeping. Those are the kind of red flags that have been waving in my face since I started representing this group. And I've served on the Ethics Commission. I'm an attorney, as I mentioned before. I'm a town attorney for another town. And everything about this legislation, as it was initially presented for a nonprofit, is of great concern to me. It is filled with the possibilities, all the possibilities for fraud, waste, and abuse. We have been saying this for months, and then the Inspector General has come in and said the exact same thing. And we urge you to heed the advice. There is not one real model of the city giving out money to a nonprofit to disperse to other people that has been successful, other than the Cultural Council. But let's talk about the Cultural Council. It was providing grants for over 20 years by the time it became the funding agency for the arts, not a core function of government. So they already had a track record. The people who have to apply to get the grants have to have more requirements than the organization and nonprofit that they would be applying from. That's a problem. If we realize that we need a history for the people applying, we need to realize we need a history for the people who are holding millions of dollars. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'd like to recognize Councilman Peluso has joined us. Next speaker will be Kim Pryor.
Good morning. My name is Kim Pryor, and my address is 245 West 5th Street. Off the bat, I would like to ask if the separate handout for the OGC summary is available for the public, because the only thing in the back when we came in was the agenda. It also says it's a technical substitute. So I don't know, does that mean that the entire bill has been changed? And if so, could we get a copy? I believe that Councilman Salem had indicated he was going to be preparing a substitute for the opioid model, and perhaps that's what that is, but none of us have seen it yet, and I would really like to see it. That being said, quite frankly, it doesn't matter if we see it or not, as long as it keeps the money within the city and under the city's oversight. I think it is way better than what's on the table today. It is your jobs as elected officials to ensure that our taxpayer dollars, and I'm not just talking about my taxpayer dollars or the taxpayer dollars of those who are in the audience today, but yours as well, to ensure that our taxpayer dollars are spent in the way that they are intended and in a way that benefits the community. I do not understand why there is such a push from one organization to have these funds taken out of the control of the city. It doesn't make any sense to me. As the Inspector General has stated, having this outside of city control is ripe for fraud, waste, and abuse. The opioid model is one that was implemented with federal dollars, and as far as I can tell, has been extremely successful and has had no issues as of yet. And I hope it stays that way. But I implore this body to recognize how important this CBA money is for our historic East Side folks. Far too long they have been taken advantage of and overlooked. It's time for that to stop. It is time for our government to make sure that funds that were allocated to be used within their community are actually used in their community and are used for the purpose for which they were intended. Again, I urge this body to adopt an opioid model for handling the CBA funds moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Miss Mary, was that the documents that she was referring to?
Mr. Chair, yes, I had extra copies that I handed out to the individuals in the audience, and Ms. Jean Bart has a copy for Ms. Pryor.
All right, thank you. Our next speaker will be Travis Williams.
Hey, good morning. Travis Williams, address on file. I want to use my time to ask really the city leadership to lead us and make a decision. We first showed up as a community dating back to spring 2024 when over 100 people in orange shirts showed up in these chambers asking for where we stand today in the CBA. And there's been a lot of things submitted to you guys, a lot of opinions. And at this point, what we're asking for is just a good decision to be made. These are city dollars. This is a great opportunity for the East Side neighborhood. There's, of course, been a difference of opinions and a dynamic difference of opinions, which is okay. Our community can have a difference of opinions. We've given a lot of options, a lot of things for the council to chew on and consider. You have options before you, and I would say some of the consistent things that folks have asked for since day one. If you go back to the memo that we presented in August of 2024 to this council, it was high transparency, it was high oversight, it was high collaboration with community and with the city. That has been the spirit of this work. That collaboration is what got us to this historic moment in time. But it's been drug out for a very, very long time. We're sitting halfway through the fiscal year of 25-26, and $0 have gone into the East Side community. And so my ask to this group is to continue to move this ball forward, and whatever decision you guys think is best at this point, because again, 0 of these dollars have actually gone into the East Side community. And that's not what we asked for. One of the things that I bring forward as a consideration, one of the most important things is that there are competent people around the table to make these decisions. With whatever path is chosen, a board is a part of that recommendation that we've been advocating for since 2024, a board that is collaborative, that is part community and community-led, that is dominantly of the community. Our first recommendations were asking that the most of those board seats go to community members, residents, and business owners, but that they're also subject matter experts. They're people that understand the category areas like housing, like economic development, like governance of dollars. And those things were left out of some of the recommendations that are going forth right now. We think that those voices are critical to have at the table. Folks like an attorney, Leslie John Bart, couldn't be on this board. She has the expertise and others like her that should be considered for a board seat like this. But right now, the current setup doesn't allow for that. So that piece of information I think is important. We need the most critical voices around this table, and we need a collaborative structure with community, but also with people that have experience in these areas, that come day one with experience. So again, we're not here in another 6 months and $0 have gone into the East Side community. Thank you.
Thank you. There was some that just come in recently. Is anybody else wishing to speak before I close public comment? Okay, well, I'll go ahead and close public comment. And Ms. Mary, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I wanted to just address, Ms. Pryor had mentioned about having a copy of the handout that's referenced on the agenda. So that is the same handout, just to clarify for the record, and I explained this to her as well. It's the same handout that was handed out last week during Dr. Salem's notice meeting. It was a summary of the bill as filed, and I believe she and the others may have received copies at that meeting. What I handed out today in the audience is a copy of the substitute to 2636 that Dr. Salem intends to offer this morning. So they each have copies of that.
All right, thank you. So you're in the queue, Mr. Peluso. Is this in regards to the bill or the proposed amendments? If it would, I'd rather. Okay, thank you. All right, so going through our agenda real quick, what actions we're going to be taking. I'll run through it real quick. Item number 1 will be deferred. Item 2 will be deferred. Item 3, I will be proposing an amendment on this, and before we do the auditor's amendment, so I'll be looking for somebody to, when we get to that, to introduce my amendment, or I'll pass the gavel and introduce it myself. Item 4 will be taking action. Item 5 will defer. 6 will amend and take action. 7 will take action. 8 will take action. 9 will be action. 10 will take action. 11 is action to withdraw. 12 is amend and action. 13 is amend and action. 14 is action. 15 is action. The rest are on seconds. And number 19 is an emergency with action. So that's the order we plan on going. So we'll go ahead to item number 1, 2024-0966 is deferred at the request of Council President Carrico. Item 2, 2025-0361 is deferred at the request of Councilmember White. Item number 3, 2025-0900. So before we take action on this, I'm proposing an amendment to that this money is coming from the JAA CRA in the northern area out beside my district. There's $200,000 that is for the United Way and $1,030,000 in it to go to the budget stabilization. I'm going to propose an amendment to or request an amendment to have that money put to the CIP project for the Yellow Bluff and Duval Road intersection. With that, I'll open it up and look for somebody to move that amendment, and I believe Dr. Salem wants to have some input on this amendment as well. So Dr. Salem, you're recognized.
I'll move it. Just to clarify, you're taking the entire $1,030,034 towards that project. Is that correct?
Correct. Plus the $200,000, unless you.
No, I understand. That as well as the $200,000 in the legislation now that was going towards the United Way. You're taking both those.
Yes, sir. I'm requesting the $1,230,034.
And I'll move that, but I would like to make a comment. I said.
Second. Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. So Dr. Salem.
Yeah, I said early on when we identified these dollars coming from the CRA, from the JIA CRA, that the district councilman in that area ought to have a lot to be said on how those dollars are spent, because it comes out of his area. Not that we should rubber stamp it, but should have significant input. That's an important project. I know you've been working on it for quite some time, so that's why I'm making the amendment and very supportive of it. Thank you.
All right. No other speakers on the amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Just for clarity's sake, it's the Yellow Bluff and Sterrett Road intersection project. You had said Duval, and just so wanted to get it on the record, that's the Yellow Bluff and Sterrett Road.
Yes, you're correct. I apologize. Let me go to Councilman Amaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I kind of concur with what Member Salem just said as far as the district councilman and the use of CRA dollars in that councilman's district. Out of curiosity, this goes to the CIP for this project. How significant is it to the completion of the project?
Yes, sir. We've met with Public Works, and they've actually brought down the threshold that we need for the project to around $8 million. I believe we've already got $5 million accumulated, so we're hoping this gets us on up to over $6 million. So we're getting close to the goal. You good, sir? All right. Ms. Murray, you're recognized.
All right. Thank you, Chair. Actually, I'm going to defer to Mr. Delaney because this is the administration's bill, so I don't know how that impacts what they were planning to do, especially number 3, the $200,000 that was going to go to the United Way, how imperative that particular initiative was. And although I do understand about the $1 million, and so because it was actually going to the reserve contingency account. So, Mr. Delaney, I don't know, how does that impact this particular bill? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, through the chair, to Councilmember Clark Murray and the body. To start with, the $200,000 to United Way. It's something obviously we support. It's a great project. Feel that the council should support it too, morally and ethically. With this contract to United Way, it should be supported. If you choose not to support it and support Mr. Gay's amendment here to remove that funding, it would be a unfortunate thing to do, but the council is the purse. We're still going to try to work with United Way. They've been a great partner to the city for many, many years. Hopefully will continue to be for many years in the future, despite this blip. We can live with it, though. As far as the Sterrett Road issue, Mr. Gay pointed out, this doesn't get it all the way to completion. It certainly helps. The project there is something that we're looking to do. This gets it a little closer. Of course, there's also, despite the money, there's the manpower to get it there. All the other things that come up in a project of this size, but it does get it closer. Right. And I think your specific question was on whether it should go to this versus the reserves. Again, that's a council decision. We're always happy to get more money for public works projects, especially with some of the decisions made from the last budget. It's been a bit tougher, so ability to find some money to help along with that and get the work done out on the street, we're in favor.
Okay, thank you for that. Through the chair to the body, just I've always had issues with the CRA being closed or ended, and I agree 100% that the funding needs to stay in that area. It does, and so I do support this particular amendment. I just hope, seeing that the data study that the United Way wanted to use the $200,000 for, I know that it was, $200,000 for it. It starts in 2027, so possibly within now, the next budget cycle, there's an opportunity for them to receive the funding, and I think they also had a match. So I'm always pleased to see when we have nonprofits, especially, who provide a match, because that means they have some skin in the game as opposed to them just asking for a total amount. So I do hope that their study will be funded in future budgets. But thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, in general, I think we've talked about this, whether it comes from the administration or from our body. I get that there's always an inclination to see money that's not being used and grab and identify things that we would like to apply them towards. In general, from my perspective, it's great to look for next year, what situation are we in? And even though normally I'd be inclined to say, let's roll this amount that the chair talked about into addressing our $61 million in projected budget deficit for next year. In this case, I tend to agree with Councilmember Salem and his comment about this money comes from that area, and I think also Councilwoman Murray, Clerk Murray, staying in this area. That's an important project. I agree. I also agree in general, north and west side, there are a lot of times infrastructure doesn't necessarily get the same amount of care and love other parts of our city do. So that's a lot to say. I am in support of this amendment and the overall adjustments. I'd like to have this happen on the front end and have these kind of discussions before the legislation comes in. That might be a smoother way to do this, and maybe a recommendation for the next time something like this occurs. But again, having said that, I support this amendment. I support the adjustment, so I'll be voting in favor of what has been introduced. Thank you.
All right, thank you. No other speakers in the queue. So I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. All in favor of the amendment, say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? None. The amendment carries. Can I get a motion and a second on the 2025-0900?
Mr. Chair, with respect to the technical amendment that's on the agenda, so if that gets moved, then with respect to what would remain and need to be updated in the bill, items number 1 and 5 as listed on the agenda, Mr. Peterson can go through that, would be the only 2 items applicable from that technical amendment, since the original amendment that was just proposed was passed. It took care of, you no longer need items 2, 3, or 4.
Okay, well, let me go ahead and get a motion and a second on the technical amendment.
Yes, please.
And then we'll give it to Mr. Peterson. So can I get a motion and a second on the technical amendment? I've got a motion and a second on the technical amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair to committee, as stated by Ms. Stefopoulos, only items 1 and 5 are needed in the technical amendment. First, clarify the funding is from the JIA CRA investment pool earnings that accumulated during the last fiscal year and in prior fiscal years. This is pulling the total amount as of the date it was calculated, and then also correcting various scriveners within the bill.
All right, any discussion on the technical amendment? None. All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? None. Yes, Ms. Mary, let's roll them up into one. So now can I get a motion and a second to move the bill as amended? Dr. Salem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. First, on the $400,000 for the litter campaign, I have heard nothing but good comments in the hallway and from constituents on the work that Mr. Ferraro is doing out there in the community, getting things done. So I know in the budget we had a lot of discussion about this particular item, but I'm going to enthusiastically support it today. I do have a question about the $850,000 for JFRD. I saw Chief Golden out there, I thought. Chief, can you come down? Can you, one, explain, and I'm always supportive of our fire department, but I want to understand what this does and why it wasn't put into the budget versus coming at this time.
Sorry about that. Thermal imaging cameras and bailout kits are safety equipment that our JFRD personnel use out in the field. We call them TICs. They're basically cameras that kind of identify heat. Heat sources within buildings is a huge safety factor. I would kind of correlate it to the importance of our safety bunker gear. It's a much needed item that we have that keeps our firefighters safe and identifies downed personnel or downed citizens in house fires as well. And the bailout kits is another safety factor that's important for our firefighters as well. It's a in basic terms, if they're fighting a structure fire in multi-level, maybe two stories or above, it allows them to actually bail out of a window if a fire overtakes them. It's kind of like a rappelling device that each firefighter has. So it's key to keeping our firefighters safe. And as far as why it wasn't in the budget, we were kind of strategically replacing a lot of these items over the years, and this gives us an opportunity to replace them all at one time, so we can be in a good place.
Thank you. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councilmember Amaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to piggyback on the Al Ferraro comments, and since Al has been in that capacity, I think in the last decade, this has been perhaps one of the most aggressive efforts I've seen to tackle blight within our city. So whatever support he can get, I'm going to support it because the reality is I see something happening. And I said within the last decade, because this position is not new, but this is the most aggressive I've seen the effort as a citizen of this community. And so Al is doing a good job, and let's support him.
All right, thank you. Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, I'll echo two of my colleagues' comments about Mr. Ferrero's efforts in regard to litter, blight, and also appreciate the people who were involved in the Springfield initiative that the council approved regarding cleanup, litter, addressing the look, quality of life of the neighborhoods, and I think this dovetailed into these type of administration efforts as well. So I think there's some good synergy, some good lessons learned, and so I support this. And obviously what the chief said, if this gives them an opportunity to replace these all out at one time and put us to a better, safer, and our firefighters, more importantly, to a better, safer place as they do their work to protect us, I'm all for that as well. So thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
All right, I'll go ahead and go to visiting council member Peluso.
Thank you, Chair. I'm very much in support of this to the point that everyone else has made. Al Ferraro's done an incredible job in his role. He talks to me pretty frequently because there's a lot of issues in parts of my district. I did have a question, and I don't know if Nina or somebody else can answer it, but one of my biggest issues is we have a lot of land owned by the state of Florida or the feds, I-95, everything else. There's a ton of blight and trash on those roads, and I know in the past, Blight was able to remove it. And I want to know, do we have that ability to do that now? Have we entered into a contract with the state to be able to clean up some of those lands? I know that was a conversation that we've had over the past couple of years. Because I know whenever I wait for DOT to do it, it takes weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks.
All right.
And to mow, yeah, to the point.
I believe Ms. Sickler's coming down to address.
Morning, Nina Sickler, Public Works. So we do have some contracts with FDOT that cover certain parts of their right-of-way. Does not cover all of them. So we recently renegotiated our contract to be very clear on what portions the city is responsible for and what the DOT is responsible for, but we have not expanded into additional areas. We've spoken with the DOT several times. In fact, it was an ongoing 18-month effort to renegotiate our contract with them. If there is the desire to have more discussions about how DOT handles their right-of-way, that would typically be handled at the state level, but be glad to bring in others to the conversation.
Oh, thank you. So with that, I see no other speakers in the queue. I would just like to add that Mr. Ferraro has been a tremendous asset in my district, very, very active and proactive. And I think the $400,000 will go a long way to help his efforts to make us all look good and to have a better, cleaner city. With that, let's open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2025-0900. Thank you, everyone. Next, let's go to item number 4, 2026-0004. Can I get a motion in a second? I've got a motion in a second. Dr. Salem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. It's my understanding that there are similar funds to this in our government, one for military dollars, and there's another park fund similar to this, where if the dollars are above $100,000, it does come to the council. If it's below 100, it does not come to the council. I'm looking at Darrell. It would seem to me I'd like to make that, if he's comfortable with that, to make that amendment that anything above 100 for this fund would come back to the council, and anything below to give him the discretion to do that. Mr. Joseph, through the chair, could you comment on that?
Good morning, Darrell Joseph, Parks Department. Through the chair to Councilman Salem, yes, I'm comfortable with that recommendation.
Okay. I'd like to make that amendment.
All right, I've got a motion and a second on the Salem 100,000 amendment. Any speakers in the queue on the amendment? Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, that was exactly the amendment I was going to offer, so I definitely support this. Thank you.
All right, no other speakers in the queue. I've got a motion and a second. All in favor say yea. Yea. Any opposed? Likewise, none. The motion carries. I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. No other speakers in the queue. Open the ballot. Record your vote.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2026-0004. Next item, number 5, will be deferred. That's 2026-0005 is deferred. Next item, number 6, 2026-0031. Can I get a motion on the amendment? I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment would include a waiver of Code Section 128.311, that's within our risk management fund, to authorize the expenditure of retained earnings on the completion grant or for the completion grant. Instead of returning funds to planned participants, there's a process that's outlined in our code for when there are excess dollars left over, returning those. However, these are all the city's dollars. So if that distribution process were to take place, it would all just come back to the general fund. Or I take that back. A portion of the $25 million would come back to the general fund anyways. So it's just waiving that section of code because we're doing something different.
All right. Dr. Salem on the amendment. On the bill. All right. No other speakers in the queue on the amendment. All in favor say yea. Yea. Any opposed? Likewise, none. The amendment carries. Can I get a motion and a second on the bill as amended? I've got a motion and a second on the bill. Dr. Salem, you on the bill? Yes. Okay.
Thank you, Chair. With this $25 million plus, my understanding that leaves $693,035.89 to complete this particular completion grant. So I will be moving legislation, and I'm looking at Mary, to take that amount of dollars out of the budget stabilization fund so that we can complete this particular completion grant and be done with it. Mary, if you would please begin working on that so we could introduce that.
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, thank you. Yes, I will absolutely do so. Philip just handed me a piece of paper with that dollar amount on it, and I'll work with him to get the BT put together so we can file the bill.
He helped me determine exactly what was left so we can put this one to bed. Thank you.
Okay, let me go to Councilmember Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Salem kind of stole my thunder because he mentioned the balance. Okay, good. It was exact, too. Through the chair to Mr. Peterson. So I remember this project some years ago. What does using these funds for this project do in regards to the funds that were originally slated in the bill? How does that help us?
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray. So the completion grant for the Iguana Four Seasons and hotel and office were approved in 2021 originally. It's been modified a couple of times along the way for various reasons, but part of that was a $25.8 million completion grant. The city did not identify how that completion grant was going to be paid, and so it's been on our listing of projects that need funding that you'll see occasionally from DIA, And based on where they are in construction and the completion date that's in the current agreement, that's expected to occur in the next fiscal year, so 26-27, which is contributing to the approximately around $70 million hole we're expecting for next year. So by funding this with these dollars, you are reducing the what would be needed for the completion grant in next year's budget and knocking away at that kind of anticipated expected hole based on what we knew during budget time.
Thank you so much for that, Mr. Peterson. Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair to Legislative Services, please add me as a co-sponsor because I think this is a smart use of the dollars that were found. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me go to Colonel Miller.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the Chair, I'd also like to be added as a co-sponsor, and I want to overall thank everyone involved in taking what I believe is a better approach toward these already approved completion grants, to be more fiscally responsible in actually addressing ones we've already completed. You heard from Mr. Peterson, this hadn't had an identified funding source. That's not a good way to operate. Let's approve the completion grant, but we don't have a funding source identified associated with it. So again, I applaud everyone involved in shifting, changing our approach in that we address first the completion grants we've already approved and funding them where we can, and also looking forward to existing known deficits to address those deficits before we recommend a series of more new completion grants that we don't necessarily have the funding associated with it. So again, thank you all involved for a more fiscally responsible approach. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. No other speakers in the queue. Let's go ahead and open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you've approved 2026-0031. Next, item number 7, 2026-0032. Can I get a motion on the bill? I've got a motion and a second on the bill. I see no speakers in the queue. Open the ballot and record your vote. Let me go to Councilman Amaro.
I'm sorry, I wasn't quick enough. Is Brian in the audience? Hey, Brian, come on down. Thank you, Brian. I'm supporting the legislation. I just had a quick question, especially in the area of downtown dredging. Just curious as to what impact this is going to have on the Orlick, which it's in that area. Can you share some thoughts there?
Yes, sir. Brian Burkett, Parks Department. Through the chair to Councilman Amaro. The downtown dredge project does not include the berthing area of the Orlick. That was not an area that was identified. Per the grant program with FIND, it has to be a publicly navigable area for public boating access. So I don't think even though it's a nonprofit partnership with the city, I don't think it would actually qualify to dredge that area. So we concentrated on our public boat ramp and docking facilities in the downtown area, and then also the mouth of the Arlington River, which is a cleanup of a previous FIND grant project.
All right. Now there's no other speakers in the queue, so let's open the ballot and finish recording your vote.
Five yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you've approved 2026-0032. That takes us to item number 7, 2026-0033. Can I get a motion on the amendment? I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment just corrects the CIP sheets, some of the prior year's funding amounts, and also the current appropriations need to be corrected.
All right. No other speakers on the amendment? If you all in favor of the amendment, say yay. Yay. Any opposed likewise? None. Motion amendment carries. Can I get a motion and a second on the bill as amended? Second. I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, to whoever is able to come and let us know, or maybe it's the auditors, whoever knows what the impact is going to be on the projects that are being proposed to be reduced. I get the increases, I get the new projects, but I want to make sure that we all understand the impact on the projects that are being proposed to be reduced. Is there someone who is able to speak to that?
Mr. Ledoux, I don't know if you can speak to that. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair, I'll speak to kind of generics when Mr. Ledoux comes down, but we budget semi-large dollar amounts in the couple to $3-4 million for our overall generic citywide CIP projects. Then Public Works, as they work through their process, find projects that need these dollars. If it's under $100,000, they can spend those dollars without coming back to council. But once a singular project crosses that $100,000 threshold, they're required to come back to you for approval of that individualized CIP project. And so that's what they're doing today. So I don't know what is in the pipeline for Mr. Ledoux, but this follows the normal process of taking dollars out of our generic CIP projects, or a specific type, if you will, and putting it towards those specific individualized road projects.
Thank you. Through the chair, yes, I understand the process. Yeah, that's what we're doing here. I would like to specifically know, for example, traffic signalization, fiber optics, we're reducing it by $1.1 million. Roadway sign, stripe, and signal, we're reducing it by $286,000. And countywide intersection improvements, we're reducing it by $700,000. So if someone could speak to what do those reductions do to those project areas, does it move those projects to the right? Were we over budgeted for the need in those areas, and so therefore there was surplus? I just want to get a feel for and enable us all as a group to get a feel for that.
Okay, yes, thank you, sir. Chris Ledoux, Public Works Traffic Engineering Division. Through the chair to Councilman Miller. The three projects that are listed that are being reduced, those are county-wide projects. They're pots of money, basically, where we don't necessarily have projects lined up to spend that money. In the past, that money was used for several smaller projects under 100,000 when we're fixing signals or supplementing work at an intersection. But nowadays, there's not much that we can get done for under 100,000. So that's why we're coming to council, and we kind of lump our projects together. We have 6 of them here that we're creating basically named projects from our county-wide projects. So the money is being spent for traffic signalization, for sign stripes and signals, and for intersection improvements. But because those projects are over 100,000, we are creating new named projects.
Through the chair, yeah, that was pretty much what Mr. Peterson just said. But again, and maybe I'm not articulating this well, just trying to get a feel for what impact those reductions in those 3 areas have on our ability for existing projects or new projects. that we were looking at doing, where does that put us in funding in those three areas for any other projects? Just trying to measure impact of those reductions.
Yes, sir. I would say that we're not reducing, we're just moving it from one pot of money to another named project. Did you want to say something?
Nina Sickler, Public Works. Just to clarify, those pots of money are intended for these types of projects. This is the type of work that we would do under those buckets of money that we receive annually. Because these projects now exceed $100,000, they just have to come back to you to approve them as a named project. So this is the work that is intended to actually complete with those buckets of money.
Yeah, I apologize. Again, I understand the process. I understand the 100,000. Okay, how about just one more try at this? For traffic signalization, fiber optics, in that bucket, if we transfer these funds of $1.1 million, what does that leave in that bucket? If I'm just trying to measure impact of these new projects, of these increased projects. And I would be fine if you get that to me later. I just want to see the state of our ability to do any more of these types of things that these payments affect.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Does that make sense
Miller,
through the chair?
Through the chair, yes. So we will get you the remaining balance. Appreciate the clarification on the question.
Thank you.
All right. No other speakers on the queue? All right, so I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Let's open the ballot and record your vote.
Five yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you've approved 2026-0033. That takes us to item number 9, 2026-0034. Can I get a motion? I've got a motion. I get a second? I got a second on the bill. Any discussion? No speakers in the queue. Open the ballot. Record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2026-0034. And I'd like to recognize Vice President Nick Hallen has joined us. Welcome, sir. That takes us to item number 10, 2026-0036. Let me go to Dr. Salem first.
Yeah, I'd like to move the technical substitute. I'm sorry.
Through the chair to the committee. So there is a technical substitute listed, but Dr. Salem, you had indicated you wanted to move a different substitute. Okay. And so if that substitute is taken up and debated and it ultimately passes, the need for the technical substitute will no longer exist.
I apologize for using the wrong terminology. Move the substitute.
I've got a...
Move the Salem substitute.
Okay, I've got a motion and a second on the Salem substitute.
Mr. Chair, I have some things I want to say, but it may be more appropriate for OGC to weigh in and explain the substitute. Then I have some comments I'd like to make, and I'd like to get the Inspector General to come up very briefly and kind of repeat what he said at the notice meeting. And I would like the council auditors to weigh in on the substitute as well.
All right.
After Mary finishes, if we can.
Ms. Mary, you recognize.
Thank you. Through the chair to the committee. So what was discussed at the noticed meeting was that the pathway of the bill as filed by the special committee was for an external model where oversight and administration of the Eastside Community Grants Program would be administered and taken care of by an external independent 501c3 corporation. The Salem substitute proposes an internal or in-house model that is fashioned after the public service grants process and the opioid grants process, where it's overseen and administered internally by city staff with the assistance of a board that is a city board that is appointed between the mayor, the council president, and then one member of the Jaguars. So where there were correlations of items that were discussed and debated in the special committee that were included in the original filed bill, that would be applicable in an internal model, I carried those over. So I will talk about these a little bit in turn, but wanted you to be aware that generally where it made sense to carry over what the special committee had addressed through their original proposed model, I did include it here, but there may be areas where this committee or others determine that they need to be massaged further. So with respect to the bill, I'll just kind of go through each section and generally describe what it accomplishes. It is still creating a Part 9 in Chapter 118 of our code with respect to city grants. Section 118.101 has essentially the same purpose, which is this is going to serve as an avenue for distribution of the East Side Strategic Focus dollars in the supplemental CBA that was approved in 2024-905E. On page 3 of the substitute, there is a map there. That is the map that was essentially included in the first bill that was filed by the special committee, with the exception of that it referenced the TIF area, which is not applicable currently at this time. So the map has been updated to just reflect that it's the CBA programmatic area with the 5 neighborhoods within the East Side community, and that is applicable when we look at the appointments to the board. 118.902 includes definitions. These are the same definitions that were in the bill as originally filed on behalf of the special committee. These definitions were essentially pulled from the supplemental CBA, and so we're carrying them forward for consistency within the grant program and the code. Section 118.903 establishes the East Side Grants Committee. Now, this is an internal committee rather than an outside 501c3 organization, and it would serve as the advisory body to the city, and it would review, evaluate, and score the grant applications with respect to the funded categories that are at issue in this program, which are affordable housing, workforce housing, economic development, and mitigation of homelessness. Section 118.904 goes into the composition, the qualifications, et cetera, for the board. The provisions call for it to be a 9-member board, 4 appointed by the mayor and 4 appointed by the council president, and then the 9th voting member would be a current employee of the Jaguars that they would select. The qualifications are, to the extent feasible, that the mayor and council president would endeavor to appoint members who reside in or have a substantial economic business interest in each of the 5 neighborhoods that comprise the East Side community. And it does provide, in no event shall more than 2 of the appointees appointed by the mayor or no more than 2 of the appointees appointed by the council president should reside in or have a substantial economic business interest in a single neighborhood, so that we can spread them across the 5 neighborhoods. And then no more than 3 members at all, regardless of the appointing authority, can have a substantial business interest or reside in a single neighborhood, again, to look for a spread across the 5 neighborhoods. And all of the committee members must have a demonstrated knowledge of the programs, services, projects, and initiatives that are most needed in the East Side community and a willingness to participate in the process. I'll skip over kind of some of the rest. I mean, it calls for initial staggered terms. It calls for the appointment by the council president of a council liaison to this board, as you have for many of the other boards and commissions in the cities. And of course, removal is at the discretion of the appointing authority. The mayor appoints and removes her seats. The council president appoints and removes his seats. Section 118.905 is the functions, powers, and duties of the board. Again, they would review and assess the annual needs of the East Side community for the different programs that would fit within the funded categories. They would recommend the process by which grants could be applied for. It could be a procurement process under Chapter 126 or the grant application procedures that are outlined in this chapter. And that is a choice that is similar to what is granted to PSG. And I think the opioid committee also has the choice. Now, they have always chosen the grant process outlined in the code, so it stands to reason that it would be similar here, but there is some flexibility afforded to these grants committees within our code, so it's consistent with that. They would review and evaluate and score the grant applications. They could participate in on-site evaluations. They would attend various orientation meetings, training courses, et cetera, to understand ethics, public records, sunshine law, and that kind of thing. And then they would identify who to award and the allocation of funds from their annual appropriation to the various recipient organizations. Section 118.906 is just organization, their officers, their rules, Their administrative support would be staff support, currently is written as from the mayor's office. There would be a manager of the program that would reside there that would oversee and administer with the board the process that's outlined in the code. Notice for their meetings would be in accordance with the Sunshine Law, et cetera. Those are all things that are consistent with our boards and commissions at the city. Section 118.907 is the annual lump sum appropriation for the Eastside Grants Program. And so that's just like public service grants and opioid grants. They come to the Mayor's Budget Review Committee with a proposal for the annual amount that they should receive for distribution through the program. They also identify the percentages to be allocated to the funded categories on an annual basis that the council must approve, so they know how much of the total lump sum appropriation is going to go to affordable housing, workforce housing, economic development, or mitigation of homelessness. And that helps not only the committee and the city understand where those dollars are going, but also recipient organizations who are applying for the grants understand what categories may be receiving a certain level of funding so they can make decisions with respect to how they might apply. Section 118.908 is the manager of the Eastside Grants Program and their responsibilities. They would be the primary staff support to the board. They would offer those mandatory application workshops. They would have at least 2. And just as what was included in the original bill is filed, at least one of the mandatory application workshops should be scheduled to begin at 5 p.m. So that was something that was discussed and approved by the special committee, and I've carried it forward here. There's also an opportunity for the manager to conduct a courtesy review of the applications when they come in to assist people in avoiding the potential for disqualification to make sure that they have what they need. There's an annual report requirement to the city council as well as a quarterly report. And then they also are required to conduct site visits to grant recipients so that they can identify and confirm that they're managing the programs appropriately. Section 118.909 is with respect to the funded categories that we've talked about. Those are the 4 that I've listed a couple of times. And the committee, just like your Public Service Grants Council does, they come each year prior to the budget process beginning and make a recommendation as to what percentage to allocate to their most vulnerable persons and needs categories. This committee would do the same with respect to the 4 funded categories for the Eastside Community Grants Program. They would make that recommendation to the council for the council's approval, and then that way they know going into the budgeting process what percentage is being allocated of their total funding to each funded category. 118.910 is the eligibility requirements to apply for a grant. There is also in Part A the exclusion of other grant programs. So to the extent that the entity may want to apply for the same program or project to another city program, they're precluded from doing so. However, the council has on occasion where they know that there are entities that have programs that would qualify for multiple grant programs, the council has had the ability to waive that to the extent you do it each year. Traditionally for JALA gets a waiver each year because they qualify for public service grants and other types of grants at the city. So generally speaking, there would be a prohibition from, if you're the same program, if you apply for the Eastside Community Grant Program and you get a grant from that, you can't then go also apply to Kids Hope, PSG, et cetera, absent of achieving a waiver from the council. So that's consistent with how the other programs, the other grant programs in the city are managed and operated. Talks about eligible programs and initiatives. They have to perform or operate a program, service, project, or initiative that would tangibly affect and improve the Eastside community within one of the applicable funded categories. And they must perform or operate programs or initiatives that are in Duval County, and they'll be used solely to serve residents of Eastside within Duval County. And then all of their expenditures, all of the grant dollars must comply with Chapter 118, Parts 1 through 5. From that, we have some eligibility documents that are required. These mirror what is included in the public service grant and opioid models. I will say that there was a notice meeting that Councilmember Boylan had, 2 of them, with respect to some updates being made to Chapter 118 for the public service grants. And to the extent that those were process improvements or changes to terminology to reflect the correct terminology or what the statute provisions say, I did go ahead and incorporate those here where they made sense and didn't alter the intent or the substance of the grant program itself, so that those, to the extent that they were appropriate technical corrections for public service grants that this is modeled after, as well as opioids, it would carry forward here. So you wouldn't have the need to go back and amend this shortly after it gets approved. I won't go through all of the eligibility documents, but stands to reason I carried over the substantive issues with respect to what the special committee proposed. The primary one being that under the PSG and opioid models, I believe both of them require that the entity receiving funds have been in existence for 3 years. This only requires 2. That was something that was discussed extensively amongst the special committee members. And it also requires that no more than 50% of their annual revenue would come from this grant program or a city grant funds in general. In the other programs, I believe it's 76%, so the special committee determined that 50% made more sense with respect to this particular program, so that is also carried forward in the bill from their original discussion. Section 118.911 is the application requirements. These are essentially the same as what public service grants and the opioid grants group require, with the exception that instead of 3 years, where there might be financial information that's required to be provided, it's only 2 years where applicable. Section 118.912, starting on page 22, is with respect to review, evaluation, and scoring of applications by the committee. I did provide in here a carry forward from the special committee's original recommendation in the original filed bill, which was that at least 5 members of the committee would be required to score each funded category. So you don't have less than 5 members scoring any given funded category of applications. It also provides for the high score model, where they score, and then the top scorer receives 100% of their funding request up to $250,000 for programs, and then they work their way down the line until the funds are exhausted. It also has similar timelines for a tentative adoption of the rankings, final adoption of the rankings, because in this instance, this process includes an appeals board and an appeals process, such as what we have with public service grants. That was not included in the external model that was being managed by a 501c3. Now, the external 501c3 may have come up or may come up with an appeals process, but we have an internal appeals process in our other grant programs here at the city, and that's been included in the Salem substitute with respect to this program as well. And then 118.913, the grant award limitations. So there was a good amount of carry forward from the original filed bill. As I indicated, grants awarded for operational and programmatic initiatives would be up to a maximum amount of $250,000. Each requesting organization is limited to submitting 1 application per funded category. And if they apply to more than 1 funded category, they can only submit 1 application total for a particular program, project, or initiative, and they may only receive 1 grant for a particular program, project, or initiative. And the intent was that it kind of spread the dollars across multiple programs or projects. The other limitation that was included here that's a carry forward is that no more than 60% of the total lump sum awarded in any given year can go towards capital projects. The intent being, as discussed by the special committee, that if you get a large capital project, there's the potential that it could wipe out the entirety of the funding given to the program and wouldn't leave anything for other capital projects or for programmatic initiatives, and therefore the special committee recommended that cap at 60%, and that has carried forward into this legislation as well. Again, the appeals process is also included in here, and I think that is the gist of it. Dr. Salem, if there's anything you think I missed, I'm happy to go over it.
Yes, carry on.
Thank you. I just wanted to make some initial comments. We have heard a great deal about the opioid model over the last several weeks. When we began to receive, as a quick reminder, we are receiving $88 million over 17 years due to the opioid settlement that's coming to the city of Jacksonville. And with my background being in healthcare as a pharmacist, I was sort of tasked to develop that program, worked with OGC and the auditors, and we developed this model where we have 2 employees that actually report through JFRD that are monitoring this program. And they do all the training, they do all the monitoring to make sure that these grants perform as they're supposed to, because the feds can come in and have us return those dollars if those grants are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So, and that grant led by Madeline Zoru, who was in the audience, has done extremely well, very effective board, and I think it's the model that we should use here. I have consistently said that. When the CBA committee voted, I was the lone vote against the model that passed, but and I was contemplating what I was going to do when we got here. In the last couple weeks or so, I've heard from the Inspector General with his concerns, and I've heard from the auditors with their concerns, and I'll let them speak in just a minute. The essential board and all those things are very, very similar. It's the control of the dollars. These are taxpayer dollars, and I think it's extremely important that we have control of those dollars. I have this program presently reporting through the mayor's office. I'm flexible with that. We can amend that if we'd like to, but that's where the legislation is today. So, and I heard a lot of discussion during this process about how long it will take to get these dollars out. I passed out a handout that Ms. Zoru put together on the timeline that she used to get the dollars out through the opioid process. And you can see it's just, if this passes and we get the person or persons, depending on the plan, on board, it's a matter of months before we can get these dollars into the community, which is about as quick as you possibly can. I think it would be much quicker with this model versus going through appointing a board and then having them begin to recruit someone. The administration can move very quickly once we pass this legislation to appoint the person that's going to run this program. So with that, Matt, Mr. Lassell, would you come forward and just briefly express your comments that you made at the notice meeting last week for those that weren't there and for the audience?
Good morning, Matt Lassell, through the chair to Councilman Salem. Yes, I guess my involvement in this came when I first saw the ordinance come across my desk. As a normal course of business, I read through all the ordinances and just look for opportunities for process improvement. This one caught my eye in particular because it mimicked, or it had similar attributes to previous programs in the past where city dollars have gone to nonprofits outside of city control. And unfortunately, a lot of those situations involved our office because we had to investigate fraud, waste, and abuse that occurred with those dollars. So I looked at this as a potential for having the same outcome, where when you lose control or oversight of the dollars, sometimes bad actors do bad things. I'm not saying that that's the case here. I just would like something in place where we have a little more control. So having had a chance to peruse and quickly read this substitute, I see that this is a much more comprehensive attempt to control those dollars and to ensure that they're appropriately spent. My concerns all along were purely based on the language of the initial legislation and how it did not allow for oversight by the city. Those are my concerns that I expressed initially. And this this second piece of legislation does a very, very good job in ensuring that those funds are appropriately spent, and there's an oversight mechanism in place to ensure that.
Thank you, Mr. Lassell. I also want the council auditor's office to weigh in. I know many of us look to the council auditor for advice on items like this. Many of us have stood up and said, that's what the council auditor says, that's where we need to go. So, Mr. Peterson, would you provide your office's feelings on this?
Yes, sir. Through the chair to the committee, similar to Mr. Lassell's comments, anytime the dollars stay within the city, that is absolutely a less risky environment for those dollars. Once the dollars leave the city, it becomes very difficult to track. And in this case, the city would have only had a contract with the 501c3 organization and not with the recipients of those dollars that were handed out through that process. Under this program, similar to PSG and the opioid program, the city will have a contract with each individual recipient. So there is more oversight, there's more control as it relates to dollars leaving the city and coming back.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Chair, I appreciate you giving me that extra time, and I'll be happy to answer any questions, or I'm sure anyone else would. Thank you.
All right, I'm getting quite a few in the queue here on the amendment. So let me go ahead to Mr. Delaney. You're on the substitute?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Through the chair to the body, I want to state the administration's opinion on this. This is obviously the first that we're seeing of this substitute, so it would take some time to parse. There's a couple of things that if this were adopted that are just that are going to be a no-go, especially the having this grant officer be an employee of the mayor's office. I'll elaborate on that later when we get to it. For now, I wanted to state the opinion. The mayor's office has, we have a stated preference for the model that was chosen at the CBA committee. That is the 501c3 model, the one that's more similar to the Cultural Council model. We didn't come to that because one of these models is better, or one of them is good and the other is bad, or vice versa. They're both good models. They both have their own strengths and weaknesses. We discussed this at great length at the CBA committee. In fact, as originally proposed in the CBA, the model that the administration originally worked out with the Jaguars was most similar to the opioid model. Back in 2023, when this all came through, that was how it was originally conceived. The City Council pulled the CBA out of the original 904 bill for more discussion. It was passed in September. All that is fine and good. The City Council wanted to have some more say, but that's where the whole discussion even came from. If it had gone through as originally proposed, we would have the opioid model. But it was pulled out. I mean, Dr. Salem knows this. He was the president at the time. It was then conceived that we would take some time with the special committee to go through, debate which direction it should go. That started September of 2024. That's, we're now in February of 2026. That's plenty of time to have this discussion. We've been back and forth. We have explored this thoroughly through the committee. The mayor's office has also had meetings with citizens of different perspectives. We've heard all the perspectives. We came to the opinion that the Cultural Council model was the better fit through all of that. Again, not because one is bad, not because one is good. There's strengths and weaknesses on both sides. With the government handling it, you do have more of the efficiency that we talked about. I'm looking at Councilmember Howland talking about how the government has a lot of efficiency here. But there's also strengths of the other model, namely that they can also go for other dollars. So some of the overhead costs can be mitigated by them seeking other dollars that the city wouldn't necessarily be able to have. All that is to say, at this point, both of them are fine models. If you wanted to have this discussion more, I just caution that we're getting into this after you just had a special committee spend a year and a half debating this. It came to a decision, and now we're going to prolong the discussion with something that was already decided at a committee specifically tasked for this. At this point, it's time to get these dollars out. It's been well enough time to make these decisions. I just don't want to see us get more in the weeds, spend even more time, going back and forth, debating the ins and outs of different things that we've already thoroughly vetted. So thank you for that.
All right, thank you. So I've got a queue full here now, so I'm going to work through the committee members first, and then I'll get to our visiting members after they get the first chance to speak. Councilmember Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Actually, I would like to hear what the council member for the district would have to say in regards to the proposed substitute, and then I would like to speak.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, let me work through the queue, and I'll be coming back to you. Councilman Amaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I take this position I'm in seriously. We have a fiduciary responsibility to safeguard not just my tax dollars, but everyone's tax dollars. Tightening up how these dollars are spent is what we should be doing. So I don't have a problem with that. I do, however, find it a little frustrating, as pointed out by Mr. Delaney, that we went through the special committee process and tried to go through the checks and balances as we were going through that process to fulfill that piece of accountability, and somehow in the 11th hour, it seemed like we failed, according to the Inspector General's office. I don't have a problem with tightening controls, but I don't want us to participate in a bureaucracy that would mire this down to where the work is not done. My question in reference to the substitute, if we decide to go with this substitute as the roadmap, the pathway to supporting the CBA and getting the work done out east, is my question, and I don't know if this is Mr. Salem can answer this, or Mr. Fopoulos, but who hires the employee that's going to be in the mayor's office? City council approves that, and what about staffing? And is this employee going to have a compensation / benefits package? I'm just curious, and maybe I'm getting into the weeds here, but how is that going to work out? That's what I'd like to know.
Let me make a couple comments, and I'll let Mary weigh in. The administration will have to make a decision on if it's not the mayor's office, we can amend that through this process, or what department it's in. There was debate in my mind whether to put it in grants and compliance or within the mayor's office. If I think I have the chair, the microphone. Thank you. Well, this is important legislation, and I have the microphone.
Please, let's keep order.
So, and then you begin that recruitment process. In the opioid model, we ended up with 2 employees. I suspect we'll probably need at least 1 to 1.5 employees to do this effectively. So as quick as the administration can recruit, identify that person, they're on board, there are dollars set aside in this grant for that purpose. Yes, I think it's the quality of person you're going to want, you're going to have to be able to offer them benefits. And that's one of the advantages of the opioid model. Is that they will be city employees, and they'll have health insurance and all those things. If you went with the other model, there is nothing there. They'd have to create all that, which I think would delay the hiring of someone. So if Mary wants to weigh in on that as well, thank you.
Through the chair to the committee, so I think Councilmember Salem covered it. They would be city employees, so they would receive health insurance benefits, et cetera, through the city. Ultimately, how many employees would be needed to administer the program, if they would be new or if there's existing capacity within wherever this lands for oversight would be kind of a determination that the administration would have to make. To the extent that they would need to create new positions or hire new people to fill those positions, they to the extent that requires an increase in an employee cap, for instance, that would have to come back to the council. It could be done through individual legislation, or it could come through the budget process. And if there's additional dollars needed to support those positions that are outside the scope of an existing account or a transfer authority, they would also need to come to council potentially to achieve obtaining those dollars to support the staff members that would administer the program. So there's some instances where there is capacity that could come to the council, but if there's an internal infrastructure in place and they feel that they have the staffing already there, then it would likely just become a new function of those positions.
Right. Let me go to Councilmember Boylan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Mr. Stefopoulos and perhaps Mr. Peterson. I do appreciate the work of the special committee. The oversight concern that the Inspector General of other have raised, have they or could they be addressed under the existing recommendation of this special committee?
Through the chair to Councilmember Boylan. So to a limited extent. So for instance, one of the items raised by the Inspector General was that there was really no reference to his office having any sort of investigatory authority or role within the proposed Cultural Council model. And so he expressed that if that's the model that you went with, we might just include some sort of a statement in the code through an amendment to that bill that reflects that he, has the jurisdiction. But here's the other concern there is, with respect to the Cultural Council model, the city is only under contract with, in that instance, the Cultural Council of Greater Jacksonville. And so we have no contract with the recipients of the various grants. And so there's a limitation there to our ability to audit, review, recapture funds that may not be appropriately expended or have the ability to try to go and retrieve those funds that we would have in an internal model where not only are we administering and overseeing the expenditure of every single dollar, but we also have contractual rights with respect to each of the grant recipients that give us further authorities and oversight capabilities than just what's in the code.
But in the context of this situation, the appropriation of the funds, if this entity was created, they would have a responsibility to the council and to the city of how those dollars are accounted for. So there is some oversight through the appropriation process, correct?
Through the chair to Councilmember Boylan, yes, there is some. I think where the issue lies is the city being able to reimburse, because the grants work on a reimbursement basis. So if we are responsible for confirming the documentation to make sure that they've properly expended monies that have already been reimbursed before we submit the next reimbursement, the opportunity for inappropriate or unauthorized expenditures to occur is much more limited than we're relying on an outside entity that may or may not have a same level of oversight within the contract they have with the grant recipients to say it's reimbursement, or before you get the next allocation, here's what we're going to require, that kind of thing. So it's in the kind of almost the day-to-day administration of the dollars versus just the appropriation itself.
Through the chair to Mr. Peterson, so in the context of the Cultural Council, I assume that the oversight is provided by your office? They report to you as to how those dollars are expended?
Through the chair to Councilmember Boylan, that's correct. So as Mary described, our contract with the Cultural Council, the grants office actually monitors that contract. The contracts that the Cultural Council has with all of the receiving entities, we do get reports from them, but if something in those reports show that they need to send the funds back, it's an effort to chase down those funds because we don't have a direct oversight of those contracts. Ultimately, the Cultural Council is responsible, but given that they've been doing this for 30 plus years, their administration of that contract is very by the book and understood. I'm concerned too, and I don't know how it can speak to this with respect to the Jaguar situation and obviously their contribution going forward thereafter.
Has anyone spoke to them about their preference? Do they want to be working with the city so the appropriations that they're making available or the funding they're making available goes through this process if we go the opioid or the PSG route?
Through the chair to Councilmember Boylan, none of this implicates the Jaguars' dollars. They determine how they spend it and where. This is only the city's dollars for the East Side strategic focus under the supplemental CBA that are.
So arguably an entity could be created, much like the Cultural Council, that would be managing the funds that the Jaguars contribute, if that's the route they wish to take.
Yes, that's a route that the Jaguars could consider, sure.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. So next we'll go to Councilmember Peluso. Yeah, but okay, well, if go ahead, Dr. Salem, and I'll come back to you, Mr. Peluso.
Thank you. Very quickly, I wanted to respond to Mr. Delaney about what happened in June of 2023. Just to refresh people's memories, I had asked for 60 days to have that contract so we could get it through the city council. It was 3 weeks before the end of the year, and we still did not have that contract. All the 14 components approved by both sides. So I made a decision that we could, through the cooperation of the 19 members of the city council, push through the Jaguar Stadium agreement, and we agreed to push the CBA to Council President White at the time. That's why we did it that way. It was a timing issue. Number two, to respond to Mr. Delaney, there have always been two bills through this process. From the very beginning, we had an opioid model bill and we had a not-for-profit bill. If the mayor's office hasn't reviewed the opioid model bill, it's been there through the whole process. Number three, I have spoken to the Jaguars about the differences here. They'll need to come forward and express their opinions on which model they prefer. I feel very comfortable where I am on the opioid model. And number four, if you really want to move this process forward, what I would do, and I hate to say this because I'm sure it won't happen, I'd go directly to Madeline Zoru and ask her to get involved if this bill passes, and I'm sure with her assistance we could move this bill very quickly until we got full-time people or have those people report to her, because she knows it, and she's been out there in the community, she understands it, and that would move this bill very quickly. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go to Councilman Peluso.
Thank you, Chair. And I obviously got a lot of thoughts about this. And so to first say, I'm not exactly opposed to the opioid model. I am not. What I am in favor of is what was discussed with the community. Now over a year ago, myself, Councilman Arias, had a very large meeting, and I wanted to have another meeting with the community before, and then this substitute kind of came around. So if it gets moved, I still want to have, I'm trying to rush one maybe on Friday so that it can be done before council night on Tuesday. Like if we really rush this, I want to make sure that at least people are aware of what's about to get passed. That's a major concern of mine. Overall, I mean, the intent, to the point of what Mr. Delaney said a moment ago, I mean, we had a whole special committee to help form this, and so for this to be kind of a last-minute change is it's quite large. But I understand the intent, and so I'm going to speak to a few things that I want to make sure are in the bill, whether it be this or in the Cultural Council model. The first thing I will say to the point of the Jaguars are not going to make an open statement about either model. They just won't. I know that, but I also know that had we had the 401 model, that the likelihood of them putting their $2.5 million directly into that was quite good. Now, if we go through the city model, in all likelihood, they'll take their money and they'll spend it on like youth athletics and stuff like that. Like that's what they've indicated to me, that they're going to just do it their own way, and that's perfectly fine. They have that right. But I doubt they're going to make an open statement. So one of my concerns with going through the opioid models, we are potentially having money on the table is going away for the East Side in this particular model, right? In the 401 model. All right. Also, we have not talked about the TIF. I know that that's concerning to some folks, but I just want to bring that up. Additional, so 2 amendments. I would like to see additional grant cycles listed in this bill, because right now I think there's only 1 grant cycle, and I think that's going to be very jarring to the community if it's just, I understand, but it's just a matter of, I want to make sure that we have the openness to allow for multiple grant cycles in a year, because if nonprofits, especially new ones, only know that there's 1 time a year to apply, I think that's going to be, you're going to get community members saying this isn't what I signed up for or knew about. So we got to have more cycles. Personnel should only be working for this particular group. So if we do have 2 FTEs, their only job should be for the East Side model. They should not have other duties and responsibilities, because I think there's going to be multiple grants that they have to administer to. To the point of the opioid model and the grants that they have, they are working with massive nonprofits that have staff, right? I've spoken to Ms. Saru, I've spoken to her staff multiple times about this model. And so they have admitted, hey, yeah, the types of folks that are coming to us, we're giving them hundreds of thousands of dollars. They have full staff to be able to take on the grants and administer them correctly with us. So if we've got smaller nonprofits, I doubt they're going to have that capacity. So I want to make sure that we have staff available to help them. I also want to add, and this is because of conversations I've had now with Parks and with Al Ferraro's office, that I think the city should be able to negotiate with the committee to see if they want to contract with the city to get additional stuff. So like if Al Ferraro's team now hires 1 or 2 people that specifically does blight removal only in the East Side community, I want them to have that ability. That's something that's kind of been brought up a few times. Like, hey, if you go out there certain times, it could be in a really tough state, a lot of trash and stuff around. So to be able to have somebody dedicated specifically to East Side doing that through a city contract could be very useful. So I'd like to add that amendment as well. Minimum grant number of $25,000, because I think we just passed a bill saying $75,000. Isn't that correct? Was it 25 already? All right, so blame my last. So that's good. And then there should be a staffer that provides assistance for like grant navigation. So if someone has never applied for a grant before, again, especially if there's only 1 grant cycle, I want to make sure that there's somebody who specifically, I'm thinking the KHA office, like somebody could walk in and say, hey, I've got this nonprofit, I've never done a grant before, how do I do it? There should be a staffer who specifically provides grant assistance, like how to write a grant. And then location and working hours, that's another concern of mine under this model. I think that we should house it in the KHA building, right? Government building, it's right there. Working hours is, I would hope that the administration or whomever hires this person, I do think it should be in grants as well, to the point of what Councilmember Carlucci is about to say. They should be able to have working hours that probably go past 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, because I think there's going to be some times where members of the community are working during those hours, and if they want to be involved, they should. So those are a few of the amendments that I have. I'm probably going to write them down for the next committee. I think rules is coming up. It's going to be in rules today. But have any of those kind of struck anyone in a bad tone? Please let me know, because I'd like to go through them all if possible. But if you can give me some time to make sure I talk to the community and make sure that people know what's coming. I don't want to sell them one bill of goods and then find out that it's going to be something else. I'm very concerned that this could become, it could be a little tough having it within the city, but I understand the issues. So that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now let me go to former Council President Carlucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Councilman Salem, I apologize for blurting out. I'm trying to help you, but that perhaps was not the right way, but I am trying to help you. Look, I think we should go with the opioid model. I can see advantages to both, but when I hear the council auditors leaning towards that, and when I see the city oversight there, I have to say that gives me a little more comfort, and I think that is the way to go. So what I'd like to do to speed this up, because this has drug on way too long, and we need to start moving these dollars and infusing them into the neighborhood. I do have 2 amendments that I think will help, Councilman Salem, to your passing your bill, passing your substitute. I'm glad you did it. I came here strictly because I was interested in seeing what you had, and I had a feeling I knew what it was. So, sorry to make you angry or upset. That wasn't the point. But I have to say, when you're on one committee and you have to visit all the other committees and and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait and you wait. I'd like to see some of my colleagues under similar circumstances. So I have two amendments that are waiting. So if we could pass the opioid through this committee process, I would like to make those two. I think they're two very good two very good amendments, and we could move on. But we can talk all we want to about amendments, but we can't do nothing until we pass one or the other. And I think the opioids model is the better of the two. I don't think the other one is bad, but I think this one just gives me a little more, little more comfort level, particularly since the council auditors tend to have a more comfort level with that. Is that right, Mr. Peterson? Okay, and that's who I lean on, council auditors. So I would suggest if somebody is inclined to move this opioid model, let's move it, get a second, and let's get the thing passed.
Right, we've already...
let's go ahead and get the vote on it. Let's go.
All right, well, thank you. So we've already moved and seconded, and I'm going to keep working through the queue and allow everybody to voice their concerns or support or objections. So next, let's go to Council Vice President Howland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm here in a visiting capacity, not a voting capacity, and thanks for letting me attend. I won't be at Finance tomorrow when this will also be heard because I'll be in Tallahassee. It's Military and Veterans Day in the state's capital, so I'll be there. But I wanted to voice my opinion on this. I prefer the opioid model as well. I do have two quick questions for Ms. Stefopoulos. The first one is, I've heard community involvement as a concern here. Does an opioid model change, or Councilman Salem's substitute, change anything about the composition of the Grants Committee?
Through the chair to Council Vice President Howland, no, it retained for the most part the exact composition that was discussed by the special committee for the purposes of appointing a board of directors to the external 501c3. The one difference is with respect to the spread across the neighborhoods. The special committee had provided that no more than 3 individuals could come from any one neighborhood. Because we have 3 appointing authorities, the strong majority of which are 4 for the mayor, 4 for the council president. We did no more than 2 from each appointing authority, so there's the potential that it could be up to 4. But it also still includes the limitation of 3. So there has to be some coordination amongst the mayor and the council president to make sure that they are honoring that spread. But the mayor can't appoint more than 2 from one neighborhood, and the president can't appoint more than 2 from one neighborhood. Okay. And between the 2 of them, they can't have more than 3 from a single neighborhood. So there's a little nuance there, but otherwise, no, the composition remains as what was proposed on the other model.
Thank you, Mary. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I like that because this is a lot of money going into the east side, and so the community having a lot of say over where that money is getting directed and how it builds up its neighborhood is important. So that is retained with the opioid model. Second question is, I've heard speed as a concern. Is there any way we could incorporate in the model allocating for the administration a cap increase? You know, you mentioned it before, allowing them to go ahead and start hiring for that role.
Through the chair to Council Vice President Howland. So I think first you need to land on who's overseeing it. And then I would say I would defer to the administration with respect to, do they have the internal infrastructure ready to go and the staff that could handle at least the initial pass at this grant program being started and administered into this fiscal year, or do they need to come back and say, we still need assistance and here's what we could use to make sure that we're staffing it appropriately, et cetera. But I think you kind of need to land on which model and who's overseeing it first before administration can begin having those discussions. And of course, I'll defer to Mr. Delaney if he wants to add to that. I don't want to make any presumptions on their behalf.
But that could require then separate legislation that has to go through the cycle.
As I indicated to Councilmember Morrow earlier, to the extent that they would need to increase an employee cap, or they don't have the dollars available and it's outside the mayor's transfer authority to make dollars available from some other account, they may need to do legislation. And I think Mr. Peterson also has some input that he could offer.
Through the chair to Council Vice President Howland and the committee, the $4 million that was approved as part of the budget is sitting in a contingency now. So for any use of those dollars, including staff, I think once the mayor's office determines how many staff they need, they'll bring that back to probably increase the cap and then appropriate the dollars for those staff purposes.
Okay, wonderful. Then I'll conclude, Mr. Chair. I'd favor the opioid model, as I said before. Thank you, Councilman Salem, for bringing your substitute. I think it gives us more control. It ensures we have more compliance. Our role is to allocate taxpayer funds, and the closer those city funds are to us, the better. I think the IG would agree on that. So would the auditors. So we address their concerns. Thank you for bringing this to our attention, and looks like it's going to have a positive vote. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Let's go to Councilmember Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. So I think if we had listened to the comments from Councilmember Salem at the time, we probably would have saved ourselves a great deal of time as a committee, as a special committee. It's already in the code. It's Section 84, and basically the outline is there for us. So we would have saved time if we had referred to it rather than just I don't want to use the term arguing, but debating amongst ourselves. The other reason why I'm going to support the substitute is the fact that I think no one has mentioned it yet, but it's what the people want. They've been talking about it for months now, and I think it's good that we're actually listening to the people who are going to be impacted the most. I also like the idea that one thing that concerns me about being in this chair and learning more and more each year about the dollars and being a native of Jacksonville, I'm concerned about our money in general. I don't want it going somewhere where we can't basically monitor it. And so what we monitor is what gets done. And when you monitor, you're able to monitor the money, monitor who it goes to, then they're more likely to do what it is that they said committed to doing with the money. So I like those ideas, and I like the idea that our IG is right there and had an opportunity to review the information that we our previous bill, so that he can see where there are deficiencies, because I think that's what's most important. We don't want to be just a piggy bank for someone else. And so there are aspects that are concerning, and I would like the mayor's office to look at how we can come together. Our idea is not to be adversaries, but to obviously work together so that we can make a better Jacksonville. And I know that there are concerns about that person being a part of the mayor's staff, but maybe we can go with the aspect of that person being under grants and compliance as opposed to a part of the mayor's office. And then making sure that we do address any other concerns that the IG may have after we vote on the substitute. The other thing is that I don't, with all due respect, Councilmember Pelusa, I don't like the speculation. I don't think that the Jaguars are going to pull out their dollars or do anything in regards to removing their dollars with this model, with the opioid model, because their idea is that they're committed to the community. They're committed to us. Well, we'll see, because I think they're invested in us and we're invested in them. And if there's an actual, I'm sure the auditors, although I'm not asking Mr. Peterson, that there is an actual process for them to contribute the money that they committed to the city. And just like I said, with those things being said, in addition to just once again listening to the community, because that's been their cry all along, and I'm going to support this model. And just like anything else, we can continue to tweak it. So where we see deficiencies, tweak it. One thing I'm learning is that once we pass a bill, although it's codified, although it's memorialized, it's not etched in stone. That doesn't mean we can't make changes. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Let me go to Councilmember Amaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm a little reluctant to speak, but I felt compelled because I sat on that CBA committee, and the reality is that the committee exercised diligence to be sure that tax dollars were protected. What the Inspector General's office is saying is it just didn't go far enough. That's what it's saying. So it was not, the committee was not given a blank check to individuals to go and do whatever. There was some monitoring checks and balances within the structure, but what I'm hearing the IG is saying, it just didn't go far enough. So I just want to be clear that, and there were a number of voices from the community. It wasn't just one voice. There were a number of voices, a number of preferences. And what the committee did in its work was trying to find what is best and most efficient at the time. Mr. Salem presented the timeline that the opioid committee staff has used from inception to in distribution of funds, and it looks like it's about 9 months, which is not a bad period of time. But now, as we go through this process, I guess we're going to push this out perhaps another 6 months. So.
All right. Thank you. So now let me go to Mr. Delaney.
Thank you, through the chair to the body. One of the things I was talking about earlier, and that we had not had time to review this specific legislation, it just having been handed to us now, is the provision of putting this staff member in the mayor's office. Yeah, that one's frankly a no-go, just because we've been here a while now and we see how that goes. I appreciate that Mr. Salem and it sounds like much of the rest of the committee would be okay with moving that. At a glance, I would say that the grants office would be a far better place. They have the policies and procedures in place, the kind of general infrastructure. I will say that they are at capacity. I don't know if Maribel is here. I don't have my glasses on, but I can feel her eyes piercing through me at the thought of putting more work on them without more staff. They absolutely will need more staff in order to accomplish this. That'll take the time that it takes. But putting it in the mayor's office look, we've had issues just in the last couple of years with council members not approving of some of the staff that's there. This is a 30-year project. We need to be cognizant of things that can change. So again, at a glance, I would recommend Grants Department. If anything else needs to change, obviously we will move with great celerity to get those positions filled. Any other things that we could do to help potentially do that on a emergency basis or anything like that will help, because again, our main goal here is to get these dollars out and into the community. It's been 2.5 years already. We don't want it to be 3, 4, anything like that.
All right, thank you. Let me go to visiting council member. Well, back up, Ms. Clark Murray. Okay.
Chair, through the chair to Ms. Stefopoulos, using the opioid model, do you think it will push back in regards to timing whenever the, let me see, if it would delay this process any longer, because it's actually already laid out for us? And once again, there are some tweaks that need to be made, but do you anticipate, based on the model itself, more delays?
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray, that's hard for me to answer because I'm not involved in the day-to-day process, as Ms. Zaru is, for instance. I will say that to make it a more efficient model, the Salem substitute has some initial provisions in it that address this fiscal year, so you don't have to wait for them to identify the percentages of funding to each of the funded categories. It just sets it at 25% for each category. So those determinations are already being made for this grant cycle, so to speak, in the bill, rather than you having to wait for the committee to get seated and then come forward with legislation, et cetera, because they wouldn't be able to meet some of those deadlines that otherwise would be applicable. So that is an efficiency that's built into the Salem substitute. And I would say that not knowing where the 501c3 is with staffing, they would have to hire and retain people, and to the extent that they can get people that are qualified in those seats to understand how to administer a program like this versus internal staff and grants and contract compliance, for instance, that have that wherewithal and knowledge. It really is, I think, something that the administration or Ms. Aru could speak to better than I could with respect to how they feel the efficiency would be. I personally wouldn't be able to answer that.
Okay. Thank you so much for that. Through the chair, so just based on, and I know she does not want to be necessarily a reference for it, determining whether or not the process would be lengthier, but just based on just listening to the model itself, what it is that we've already done, it doesn't seem as if it would lengthen the process. The start would still be around the same, it sounds to me, and I listen very well. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So that, I have no other speakers in the queue, so that brings us to the substitute that we've got a motion and a second on. So I want to go ahead and let's have a vote on that, and we'll keep working our way through it. All right, so all in favor of the Salem substitute, say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? No opposed, so the motion carries. So now,
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, so to the extent that there was a desire to amend anything, there's been a lot of talk about who's overseeing. This would be the appropriate time to offer those. And then at the end, Mr. Chair, to the extent you do have amendments that get offered and approved, we would just ask to roll those into the substitute. And then from there, you would move the substitute and then have a ballot vote.
okay, so now we're on potentials amendments to the substitute. So let me go to visiting Councilmember Carlucci.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you calling on me because I do need to get back to my business and where I can make some money. So I have two amendments, and I've had Mary work on those for me. And Mary, do you want to explain the amendments that I have? And also, when she explains the amendments, I would like to, Mr. Chair, if it's okay, to have Mr. Travis Williams come up and make comments with regards to those amendments to get his thoughts on those for the committee's consideration. I think they're goal-oriented amendments, but I think they're important. So if Mary, through the chair, could explain those, and then through the chair, if you wouldn't mind calling Mr. Williams up, I would appreciate that. By the way, I don't know if you remember Councilman Salem, he went to school with our boys at Stanton.
Ms. Mary.
Through the chair to the committee, Councilmember Carlucci, would you like to take them each in turn, or you want me to explain them both?
I have two amendments. I'd like to take one up at a time if we can.
Okay. So the first amendment that Mr. Carlucci, I think the easier one to get through would be to change the oversight to the Grants and Contract Compliance Division in the Finance Department in lieu of the Mayor's Office.
All right, I've got a motion and a second on that amendment. Any discussion on that amendment? Ms. Clark-Murray.
I think it's perfect through the chair.
Music to my ears.
All right, so no other discussion on the amendment. All in favor, say yay. Yay. Any opposed likewise? None. That amendment carries.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we could go to my second one.
So through the chair to the committee, Councilmember Carlucci's second amendment is with respect to qualifications to serve on the board. Currently, the requirement is that they appoint members who reside in or have a substantial economic business interest in each of the neighborhoods. And we talked about how many maximum can come from a particular neighborhood. Councilmember Carlucci would also like to include language that essentially establishes a goal for an additional qualification for the members. The first would be to have one member that has economic development or workforce development experience included on the board. The second would be to have a member that has affordable housing and workforce housing experience on the committee or the board. And the third would be to have somebody who has experience relative mainly to homelessness or to help people retain their homes, such as mitigation of homelessness, heirs properties, home repairs, tax relief. That's kind of a broad category, but to have members that have those additional qualifications as a goal, not a requirement, recognizing that if they have to come from the neighborhoods, it may be difficult to find individuals that meet the neighborhood requirement and this additional requirement, which is why he's proposing it to be a goal of additional qualifications.
And I had these ideas brought to me by Travis Williams, which is why, through the chair, if we could have Travis maybe come up and just speak to them quickly. I did want to mandate it, but I do think subject matter experts are important. I know when I've had special committees, I've always tried to have some subject matter experts involved. Could we hear from Mr. Williams, please, sir? Oh, I'll move it. Oh, sorry, I can't.
All right, I don't.
Somebody move it for me in a second.
Go ahead, Dr. Salem.
Through the chair to OGC, I don't disagree with your suggestion, but should goals be in an amendment to legislation? I have concerns about just doing that.
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, so to the extent that they would be written into the code, which we're creating a new Part 9 of Chapter 118, so under the qualifications section, to the extent that the council wants to see the appointing authorities, I try to identify people with these additional qualifications, it would be appropriate to put it into the code as a goal, not a requirement. However, nothing would preclude the mayor or the council president from looking for those additional qualifications in their own right if you don't put it in the code. This would just mean that they have an obligation to at least try to seek those additional qualifications out.
Through the chair, so it just has the mayor and the council president in their own mind try to find people with those qualifications, but does not mandate it.
It does not mandate it, or if you get multiple people from the same neighborhood and one of those individuals meets one of these goal qualifications, it might set them above as the logical appointee versus some of the others, all other things being equal.
I'll move the amendment.
All right, I've got a motion and a second on that amendment. Councilmember Amaro.
Mr. Chair, through the chair to Ms. Stefopoulos, Section 118.904, line 25. Doesn't that accomplish the same thing? Mary?
I apologize.
Section 118.904, line 25. Does that not accomplish the same thing? I mean, when I read that, would you expound, please?
Through the chair to Councilmember Amaro. So I think that language really indicates that they have an understanding of what the needs are in the community. So they might recognize where workforce housing or workforce development might be most applicable, although I will say workforce development isn't one of the funded categories, but recognizing that these are kind of some of the matters that would be natural to consider when you're looking at these things. So this is just saying they have to have knowledge of the community and what the needs of the community are that are not being met, and maybe how they can be met. The other is subject matter experts with respect to if you have an affordable housing or a workforce housing project, what they might know with respect to getting a project that's feasible on the books, getting it to completion, et cetera. They might be able to lend some more knowledge as to when you're looking at grants, if you get multiple grant applications for workforce housing, affordable housing, where they might be able to lend expertise is what's the feasibility of the project that's being applied for compared to some of the others. They might be able to lend that subject matter knowledge to scoring, et cetera. That's more than just what does the community need? Is this project going to meet that need?
Through the chair to follow up. Okay, demonstrated knowledge and subject matter are obviously not the same. That said, if we move forward with subject matter to Ms. Sifopoulos, how does this impact the composition of the board, since there's 4 from the mayor, 4 from the city, from city council, and yet trying to fulfill that goal of having representation from the 5 areas?
Through the chair to Councilmember Amaro, so there is still the requirement that they have members that are spread across the 5 neighborhoods, no more than 3 from a specific neighborhood overall, no more than 2 by each appointing authority from a specific neighborhood. So you get that, you get the community-wide presence that each of the 5 neighborhoods may have different needs or identities that need to be acknowledged in the process of, looking for grants that would meet those needs. So that's why Councilmember Carlucci is proposing this as a goal, or they should endeavor to seek these people out with these additional qualifications, but not be required, because to the extent you may not find somebody that meets one of those subject matter qualifications because they don't reside in one of the 5 neighborhoods, or they reside in one but we already have 2 from that neighborhood, they're not precluded from selecting somebody from that additional neighborhood just because they don't meet that subject matter expertise, because it's not going to be a requirement. So that's why the goal helps that interplay.
All right, very good. So let me go to Councilmember Murray, Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Through the chair to Councilmember Matt Carlucci. So first of all, your idea is that, are you thinking that there are going to be 3 members here, or is it just at least, the goal is at least to have one of these members with workforce experience? I just need a little bit of clarification.
Through the chair to Councilman Clark Murray, ideally it would be nice to have 3. Okay. Subject matter experts are always, it's always preferable to have them, and I don't want to risk overselling and not get the votes I need. I'm trying to count votes, but I thought it would be well for Travis Williams maybe to speak to this very quickly, because I have such immense respect for this young man, and I've known him for so many years, and I have enjoyed watching his career expand and to grow. And I think, although maybe I have the yes votes, it might help cement them if we heard from him, and it might make those who are a little bit still wondering why, might help anchor their votes.
Yeah, all right. Thank you for that. Through the chair to the body. So a part of the opioid legislation as codified, it does actually have a section. I remembered the section when I read through it. It says that the mayor, council president shall appoint 1 member from each of the following categories. So it talks about 1 mental health professional, a peer specialist, and a healthcare professional. And it does use the language shall. But here, part of my concern is that I really want those who are in the community, the neighborhood, to be represented. And so my concern is whether or not you'll be able to find 1 member, or a total of 3 actually, with workforce experience, with workforce housing experience, with homelessness experience. I think, I'm not opposed to the language that you want to add, but I am concerned about them actually finding those persons. So I do not want to make it a shall if we do decide to add it, so the goal is to, as much as possible, to find those persons with that type of experience. However, if you don't find a person with that experience from those neighborhoods, that it will be okay.
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray, and that was my understanding of his amendment, and that's how we would write it. So the requirement to meet the neighborhood threshold is they have to meet that, no matter what. That's the way the bill is written now. It would then, so this would not be a shall at all. It would be, to the extent feasible, they would be looking for these additional qualifications if possible.
All right, so let me go back to Councilman Carlucci. You got somebody you want to bring up, so go ahead and bring him up, and we'll...
Mr. Williams, through the chair, would you come up here and very quickly, don't oversell it, but just kind of reinforce what we got here so we can keep our yes votes intact?
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think Councilmember Clark actually just sold it. It's just precedence. The opioid model actually lists out similar requirements. And I don't want to miss the point, too. There's expertise in this neighborhood. Please do not assume this is a neighborhood that doesn't have people with expertise in it and that we're sacrificing community voice because we're looking for people with certain expertise. I don't think that's intended to communicate that, but sometimes that's how it comes off. There are people who have economic development, workforce, et cetera, expertise. And I think it's important for the fidelity of these dollars and for them to do what we all want them to do, to have those people at the table to help with the overseeing of grants. I mean, this is $40 million over 7 years. And to not have that, I've heard a lot of talk about financial oversight and the responsibility of this body. To not have that, I think, is an oversight, to not want to have people at the table who have the expertise to oversee these dollars. But don't assume that those people aren't in the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you. Give your name and address for the record.
Travis Williams, address on file.
All right, thank you. All right, let me go to Dr. Salem.
I have comments on the Peluso material. I'd like to vote on this amendment. Can I call the question on this amendment? Can you do that in committee?
Through the chair to Councilmember Salem, yes, you can.
I call the question on the amendment.
All right. All in favor of the question on the amendment, raise your hand. All right. The question is called. So all in favor of this amendment, say yay. 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 Any opposed likewise? The amendment carries. Now, Mr. Boland, you're in the queue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. There are two comments I'd like to make with respect to page 13, Ms. Stefopoulos. This is a 7-year grant program. Here we're saying that they must be in existence for 2 years. I'd like to offer an amendment to read in existence for 2 years in the initial year and 3 years thereafter. In other words, to put it in line with the PSG qualification of being in existence for at least 3 years. So I would like to offer that as an amendment, to go from 2 years initial in the initial year and 3 years thereafter. That's my motion.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second on the Boland amendment. No speakers in the queue? Dr. Salem.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just to reflect the discussion at the CBA, there was, and I think it was led by Councilmember Peluso, frankly, if I recall, Councilman Amar was shaking his head yes. There was a concern that you would exclude a lot of people if you raise that years to 3, and there was just a discussion, let's compromise on 2. So just to...
I appreciate that, but I think this allows that to happen. For the first time around, they've got to have 2 years of experience. It goes to 3.
I'm fine with that. I think the more experience they have, the better chance they have of being successful.
All right, I've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say yay. Yes. Yay.
Yay.
Any opposed likewise? None?
Mr. Chair, I have a second amendment, if I may. Page 15, line number 17. In the aggregate of 50% of the requesting organization's revenue, I'd like to modify that to say aggregate 50% of the requesting organization's revenue in the initial year and 24% thereafter, to put it again in keeping with the PSG.
PSG, I believe, is 76%.
76%. I'm sorry, I went the reverse.
Let me just double check with Ms.
Yeah, it is 76. You're right. I went the reverse number. In other words, to put them in line to say that they've been able to demonstrate an ability to secure funds outside of the funding that they're securing from this entity. I'm looking for a second. It's page 15, line number 17. 50% of the requesting organizational revenue in the first year, in the initial year, and then 76% thereafter.
So it should be 24, I believe. So no more than, yeah. I mean,
okay.
we're trying, the inverse is getting us. We're just double checking it, Mr. Boylan. So the intent would be that the city can't receive dollars or they can
entity.
receive dollars from the city in the first year, so the first grant cycle essentially, that exceeds more than 50% of their annual revenue. And then after that, it could be no more than 24% of their annual revenue.
Correct. Again, putting it in keeping with the PSGs. Hearing no second, I would withdraw the amendment.
All right, so let's go to Dr. Salem.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to weigh in on the Peluso piece of paper that he passed out. Number one, if you've been involved in these grant applications and having worked with the opioid program, there's a lot of work just for one cycle. And I think some of these things should be decided by the committee versus amendments, such as multiple grants per cycle. If they can do that and working with staff, fine, but why make that an amendment? Dedicated personnel, I mean, that's for grants and compliance to decide how those staff members are managed, in my opinion. Again, I don't think that belongs as an amendment. Staff should include grant navigators. I mean, again, that's a detail that should be worked out by grants and compliance, not as an amendment, in my opinion. Working hours, again, that's a management problem and deciding how you're going to do it. So I think many of these should be decided through the committee and the staff and not go in as amendments. I hope my good friend Mr. Peluso was listening, or Brooksy is listening, and communicate that to him. Thank you.
All right, so let me go to Ms. Mary.
Chair, just on a couple of these, so with respect to creating dedicated personnel to administer the program, I would just caution the council that you all are not necessarily in a position to dictate job descriptions. You create positions, you fund the positions. To the extent that you would want to ensure that these positions are dedicated to a program, you could park them in an account where only those funds are for the Eastside community grants. So there is a way about that. With respect to ensure city departments can apply to administer programs, I think there's a couple of concerns. He mentioned blight programs, but that does not fall within one of the 4 funded categories. And those necessarily, because the economic development, workforce housing, affordable housing, and mitigation of homelessness. So we'd have to be careful of that, in addition to the fact that I don't think he meant for them to have to apply for the grants. I think he was looking at a use of the funds. We just have to be cognizant of the limitations we have in the supplemental CBA on how those funds can be expended. So we'd have, with blight, for instance, we'd have to tie it back to a funded category in some capacity. And then staff providing technical assistance. He mentioned grant writing. There's a bit of a concern from my perspective on conflict of interest there. If we're assisting people in how to write grants to help them better qualify for, we have to be real mindful of that, because this is supposed to be a competitive, unbiased process to apply for these dollars. And so we just don't want to create a situation there where people might be disqualified, or we might, put ourselves in a conflict of interest situation with some of those things.
All right, thank you. Okay, Councilman Mars. All right, very good. So, Mr. Delaney.
Thank you. Through the chair to the body, just want to comment on a couple of these. The number one, at least certainly gets to something we consistently heard from the public, that they wanted more, range, more flexibility. So if that's something that's written in, it's definitely something that, regardless of whether it's in there, that this administration will try to do, but future administrations may see things differently. But the community certainly wants more of these opportunities. Number two, similarly, at least in the spirit of having somebody that's dedicated specifically to this, rather than somebody who this is one of multiple jobs that they have. If that's a matter of determining a specific person or a specific bucket for the dollars to go in that have to be spent that way. I think either would accomplish that need. Number 4, of course, I wanted to just say is already, I think, in every version of the legislation. And then the last 2 are, similar. They're things that we did here. The location and working hours is probably something that needs to be worked out later, unless you just want to say it should be located somewhere in the east side, because the KHA building is there now, but it didn't used to be. There could be different buildings in the future. We're talking 30 years. There might be some need to replace the building or to build more. But as far as the staff, including the grant navigators, I think similar to the dedicated personnel, if there was a way to get that in spirit, I think that would certainly make the community, it would certainly meet something that we've been consistently hearing.
All right, thank you. One last speaker in the queue before we go ahead and take a vote on the substitute. The amendment for the substitute. Ms. Clark Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Okay, so through the chair to Ms. Stefopoulos. Through the chair to the body. So I think out of the list that Mr. Councilmember Peluso presented to us, that it seems that we have somewhat of a consensus on the multiple grant cycles each year, so that we could add language so that at least one grant cycle, but not necessarily make them committed to having more than one grant cycle, so that they don't feel as if they want to do more than one, that they can. So they're not limited. So I don't know who would possibly want to give me some, I don't know. That's one of the reasons why I think he brought it up. Anyone who wants to respond to it through the chair.
Through the chair to Councilmember Clark Murray. So there's an extensive process that is laid out on how the whole, from start to finish, will work for grants.
Right.
And it kind of starts with the committee making a recommendation to council on allocation by percentage over the 4 categories. And that's to happen in the February-March timeframe. Then they make a recommendation or request to the mayor for the dollar amount to be included in the budget. And that's, let's say that's in the April timeframe.
Right.
Then the application window opens, or I take that back, they hold the workshops in May, the 2 workshops. The application window opens in the June-July timeframe, and then they begin to review those applications in the August timeframe.
So through the chair, I think, I'm sorry to interrupt. I think what you're trying to tell me is that because of the extensiveness of the process, it would not allow for multiple grant cycles. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Through the chair, I would
caution.
I would take ultimate direction from the grants division because they do this on a daily basis. But I don't know that with the extensive process, I think multiple grant cycles would become difficult. Okay. Not saying it's not doable,
right.
But based on how the city has worked grant cycles, I think sticking with one is more in our wheelhouse. And if they decide that a second one's available, we can come back and amend the code to account for such.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you. Through the chair to the body. I withdraw my discussion previously. Thank you.
So, yeah, I'm going to have Ms. Mary roll these up.
So we'll roll them into the substitute, Mr. Chair, and then the motion would be to move the bill as substituted.
I'm sorry. Please, point of order. Can we just make sure we understand what those amendments are?
Sure.
Thank you.
Do you want me to go through those?
Thank you, Chair.
Yes, if you could explain what's all included in that, and then I need to go to Councilmember Morrow.
Okay. So the 3 amendments that were adopted by the committee are as follows. The first was to change the oversight of the program to the Grants and Contract Compliance Division in lieu of the mayor's office. The second was to add those additional goals for qualifications of the board members that would include an individual with economic development and workforce housing experience, an individual with affordable housing or workforce housing experience, and a third individual who has mitigation of homelessness experience with some of those additional ancillary kind of adjacent areas. So it's a pretty flexible additional qualification goal, which, heirs, property, home repairs, tax relief, et cetera, kind of all lend itself to mitigation of homelessness. And then the last one was for the first grant cycle, so for the first grant year, the organizations, the receiving organizations only need to have been in existence for 2 years. And then for every grant cycle that occurs thereafter, it changes to 3 years to be in line with the public service grants process, and I believe the opioid process as well. I just wanted to one thing to clarify on the Jimmy Peluso recommendations. Item number 4, setting a minimum grant amount of $25,000. That was established in the code by the council recently for direct appropriations. So it would not apply to this type of grant because they are going through a competitive process. It's only when you were directly appropriating dollars through legislation that minimum was set.
All right. Councilman Morrow, do you have, you're good? Okay, so Ms. Mary, on the technical substitute, do we still need to move that?
Mr. Chair, no, they all applied to the bill as originally filed. So with the substitute being what's moving forward, we do not need to take up the technical amendment. Okay. And I will roll up those 3 amendments at your direction. So the motion you would call for is to move the bill as substituted.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second on the bill as substituted. No further discussion. Open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
All right. By your vote, you approve 2026-0036. And I want to go to Councilman Miller real quick, then I'm going to have a comment on this bill before the community leaves.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quick, through the chair, before they all leave, I want to thank the IG's office that's heading out, and more importantly, all of the residents of the East Side community who have so diligently and patiently shared your concerns, your oversight and recommendations, concerns, and you obviously know we've heard you. And thank you for your time. Thank you for your input. Thank you for caring enough to come forward in all of these meetings. So again, thank you.
All right, thank you, Colonel Miller. And I want to share those same sentiments as well. This is governance. And what y'all have done is stood and worked with the community and the committee and Dr. Salem, all this wisdom that's put in for the betterment of y'all's community. I give y'all kudos and congratulations, and look forward to a better East Side. So thank y'all all for being here. So with that takes us to item number 11, 2026-0083. I've got a motion and a second on the withdrawal. No discussion. Open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
By your actions, you approve the withdrawal of 2026-0038. Item number 12, 2026-0039. Can I get a motion on the amendment? I've got a motion and a second on the amendment. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment will attach a revised BT to make sure the funds get to the proper place by revising the activity code.
All right. No discussions on the amendment. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed likewise? None. The amendment carries. I've got a motion and a second on the bill as amended. Mr. Boland, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Since they're here, is someone from JSL come up and speak to a little bit as to the rationale for this funding? I understand recently there was a raid on a cockfighting situation, and 2 of the members were recognized as unauthorized aliens. How proactive is JSO in terms of enforcing immigration rules right now?
All right, Kevin Goff, Director of Corrections for JSO. So this funding, this bill is for, last year the state created the State Board of Immigration Enforcement, and they also created funding to help local law enforcement enforce federal immigration laws. And so we are designated in Zone 7 as a transportation unit for Zone 7. So we're responsible for picking up detainees in Baker, Clay, Duval, Nassau, and St. Johns County. So every day at 6 p.m., we get a notification from federal ICE of immigration detainees in the local jails that need to be picked up and transported to the local ICE office.
That was my question or concern. So once they're identified as an unauthorized alien, they then are turned over. Your office doesn't do anything more than the process of temporarily retaining them or detaining them and then moving them forward.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Morrow, you recognize.
Thank you. Just a quick follow-up question. This has nothing to do with 287G, right? This is something separate?
This is part of the 287G. For example, an illegal alien gets arrested here in Duval on criminal charges. Once their criminal charges are done with, then we turn them over to the ICE agents. And so this van will be used to help transport those people to the ICE office.
And these dollars are coming from the state?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other speakers? So we wanted to make sure. So let's open the ballot and record your vote. Making sure we.
6 yeas, 0 nays.
All right, by your action, you've approved 2026-0039. Item number 13, 2026-0040. Can I get a motion on the amendment? I've got a motion. Can I get a second? All right, I've got a second. Mr. Peterson.
Through the chair of the committee, the amendment will attach the actuarial report from the actuary stating that there is no impact to the police and fire pension fund by adding these two positions, and then lastly, correcting a scrivener's.
All right, no speakers in the queue on the amendment. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Likewise, none. Amendment carries. Can I get a motion on the bill as amended? I've got a motion and a second. No speakers in the queue. Open the ballot. Record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you've approved 2026-0040. That takes us to item number 14, 2026-0042. Can I get a motion on the bill? Second. I've got a motion and a second on the bill. Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, I'd like to be added as co-sponsor. Thank you.
All right, no other speakers on the queue. Open the ballot, record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you've approved 2026-0042. Item number 15, 2026-0043. Can I get a motion on the bill? Okay. I guess I got a motion and a second on the bill. Ms. Murray, you're recognized.
Thank you. So this resolution, I'm sorry to exclude the at-large council members at this time, but this resolution is not just about my district, but it's about the 13 other council districts. And I know all of you know the impetus for this resolution. So basically, it's stating that it's a formal intention for each district council member to basically be solely responsible to identify and recommend expenditures of the $1 million set aside for each district according to the supplemental CBA. I mean, each of you know that prior to, a council member tried to appropriate some of my funds to a project, and I think prior to that, we all pretty much knew that, you know, if the funds are in your district, then you should be able to determine where those funds are applied. But unfortunately, you know, it's just like one of those things, and since I'm up here with the gentleman, I'll say that, you know, it's kind of one of those unwritten type of things. You know, you don't date your best friend's ex-wife, you know. You don't have to be told, you know, not to do that. So I think we're under the impression that, you know, everybody knew, you know, you don't spend someone else's council dollars. But, I considered my audience here. So now it's being expressly memorialized that we are aware that that's something that we shouldn't do. And that's the extent of this bill. And if you have any questions, or resolution, if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
All right, thank you. No other speakers in the queue. Let's open the ballot and record your vote.
Six yeas, 0 nays.
By your action, you have approved 2026-0043. Next items are on second. Item number 16, 2026-0063, 2026-065, 2026-066, and 2026-0074. Can I get a motion on emergency? I've got a motion and a second on the emergency. Dr. Salem, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair. I wish the sponsor was here. I'm hesitant to vote for this unless I understand the position of our delegation on this bill. And I have not heard, I have been unable to determine the position of our local delegation on this. Does anybody know?
So let's, wait, you want to ask start?
Yeah, sure. If he's aware of it, I'd love to hear Councilmember Boyley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair to Ms. Councilmember Salem, I did receive a text from Mr. Councilmember Peluso affirming that Councilman Wyman, he is openly in favor. House Member Wyman is openly in favor of this bill. I think the context of the bill, if you take a chance to read it, merely creates a council to do some exploratory work to see what needs can be addressed in the future. The only investment that's being made is the hiring of a contractor to manage the council, which is a full, I'm looking at the bill itself. It's establishment of the Northeast Florida Rivers and Springs Recreation Economic Development Advisory Council, and there are 9 members of the council, et cetera. So really, at this point in time, it's an opportunity to explore how we can protect and develop the areas along that river.
So through the chair, the House, I guess the House Bill 981 is Wyman Duggan's bill. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct.
We know who the Senate bill is?
I do not.
I just wish we had more information. I'm just a little uncomfortable. Just me.
All right, thank you. So let me go next to Councilman Colonel Miller.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through the chair, yeah, I have similar concerns. This effort was attempted last year, and I knew there were some concerns on the part of Governor DeSantis, and this did not occur last year, and it's going through or being considered again this year. And as of last week, I believe I saw that the governor still does not support this effort. And so I'm not saying we should go one way or the other on this, but I agree. I would like to hear from the entire delegation before I would consider this, because I've read many articles on this over the years, many, both pro and con, and I see the concerns on both sides of this issue because of this. But yeah, anyhow, I personally would like to hear from the whole Florida delegation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Now we're on the emergency, this as an emergency. So we'll go to Councilmember Amaro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just very quickly, this bill, or this resolution was discussed during the Waterways Commission. It was not in a proper posture for an actual vote, but after conversation, the Waterways Commission supported this resolution moving forward. Basically, it is encouraging Ms. Wyman, and I'm trying to remember who sponsored the Senate bill. Who was it? Okay. Just that from our perspective in North Florida, that the work that that's being considered, we supported it. So again, in waterways, it seemed harmless enough and something that would benefit our waterways, and And so the Waterways Committee had endorsed it without taking an official action because the legislation was introduced in an inappropriate time, if you will.
Okay, Mr. Boland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd love to see this go through 6-0. So my recommendation, if I could, we've got an emergency. We're all voting on the emergency right now. I would just vote down the emergency so we have an opportunity to get a better answer to the questions and in that process and take it up in rules at that point in time. So I will not be supporting the emergency.
All right. So no more discussion on the emergency. So this is a ballot vote on emergency or just a voice? Voice. All right. So all in favor of the emergency, say yay. Yes. I got one yay. All opposed to the emergency, say nay. 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 So by your action, the emergency fails. So now, Ms. Mary, this just goes back to a regular cycle.
Yes, so that essentially this converts to a second reading here in committee. It will still go to rules, and that there may take action. They can do a similar vote on the emergency. If they take action and move it forward, then it'll be up to the president at that juncture whether to discharge it from neighborhoods or let it come back.
Very good. All right, so that takes us to the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned.